Welcome to Vigilant News Interviews. For our guests today, we have Ryan Heath, the founder of the Gavel Project. We had a chance to interview Ryan a few months ago. How's it going, Ryan?
Thanks for having me back, Ryan and Justin. It's great to see y'all again.
Good to see you. So you are in Arizona, if I remember. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I'm actually, I've got a new office here in Scottsdale and enjoying this beautiful weather. It's starting to turn into winter here, which is the nice time for us.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's great. My wife's father's actually right out there, so that's cool. So you've been really busy, and you were just telling us off camera about a pretty awesome update to some of the stuff you've been working on. So why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah, so I ended up suing the Secretary of State here in Arizona, the Attorney General, the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, and a few elections officials within Maricopa County, challenging the results of the 2022 general election here in Arizona. Specifically, we're challenging the race for the governorship, the race for the Attorney General's seat, as well as a number of propositions that failed to pass. And that's because Maricopa County failed to follow very specific rules that are passed to further the constitutional rights of my clients. So we're very excited about this lawsuit. We believe that we are going to succeed. We've already had waiver of service from the defendants, and we've served those that did not waive. So we are going to be getting a response here, I hope, very quickly. So we'll, fingers crossed, get this thing going quick.
Excellent. Okay.
All right.
So we're talking about the election for, to get everybody up to speed here, the one involving Carrie Lake and Katie Hobbs, the big controversial one that happened. So
yeah, maybe you guys have heard of it.
Yeah, maybe you've heard of it. Yeah.
It was such a mess. I mean, as well, I can say we're planning another lawsuit. I've been talking about this publicly for a little while, but just to inform your listeners, we are looking for folks here in Maricopa County that were not able to vote on election day. Folks that showed up, experienced the 2, 3, 4 hour lines that were on site, which were caused by these tabulation machines malfunctioning. And you actually have a right, once it's conferred to you by the legislature, to vote in a specific way. So basically what Bush v. Gore says is that under the 14th Amendment, and this is true with respect to Arizona's Equal Protection Clause as well, once the legislature confers a right to vote in a specific way, that's a fundamental right. They can't deviate from that in a negligent manner and actually disenfranchise voters. So if you were someone who went to a voting station on election day here in Maricopa County and you could not vote because you had to stand there for so long, maybe you were disabled, you couldn't just stay in line all day, you were pregnant, whatever it may be, you had to get to work. We are looking for folks who want to effectuate their rights, who actually want to challenge the disenfranchisement that resulted from this really negligence, in my view. And so if you are interested, please go to heathlaw.com. That is heathlaw.com, and apply for representation there. This litigation is fully funded. We are going to be taking this on. We're also going to be indemnifying folks. I know there are a lot of people out there who are scared of getting involved in these types of lawsuits because they see sanctions going out left and right. But frankly, I'm not scared of that. And I'm not scared of it to the degree that I'm willing to actually put my money behind it and actually take these people on. So I believe wholeheartedly we will succeed in these lawsuits, and I want to encourage folks to go and apply.
Flying Gang Rum Company is a genuine symbol of American pride. Crafted in the Sunshine State, this luxury handcrafted rum is a testament to our American heritage. Flying Gang Rum is patriot-owned and woman-owned, a true reflection of American tenacity and spirit. What sets this rum apart? Well, it's meticulously produced from pure Florida sugarcane, aged to perfection in ex-bourbon barrels, and then select cast finished. A rum so pure it comes with no added sugar, colors, or artificial flavorings. That's right, folks. This is pure rum. This is not just any rum. Flying Gang Rum is on a mission to change how we perceive sipping rum. To Florida, it's what wine is to Napa, bourbon to Kentucky, and whiskey to Tennessee. This iconic rum is all about elevating the connoisseur's experience, capturing the rich history and unique character of handcrafted rum. Each sip is an adventure, a rebellion, embodying the wild, untamed spirit of the Flying Gang. So come take a journey back in time to when Florida's seas were wild and uncharted. Savor the distinct flavor, the remarkable history. This is a rum that commands recognition, respect, and unwavering commitment to quality. So whether you're a casual fan or a diehard fanatic, come raise a glass with us. Here's to Flying Gang Rum, your ticket to a luxury rum experience like no other. Go to badlandsmedia.tv/rum and use the promo code BADLANDS for free shipping on orders over $100. Snoring keeping you or a loved one up at night? Look no further. Introducing Zeppa. Not just another mouthpiece, but the solution. What makes Zeppa stand out? Well, it's the only anti-snoring consumer mouthpiece with an FDA-approved clinical study behind it. And guess what? A staggering 91% success rate proves its effectiveness. No other snoring mouthpiece out there can boast such results. Zeppa isn't just about numbers. Its innovative design stands as a testament unto itself. With the unique tongue-stabilizing band and self-molding technology, it promises a custom fit. And with 2 distinct device designs to choose from, there's something for everyone. Now, we understand trust is earned. That's why we make a bold promise. If Zeppa doesn't put an end to your snoring woes, send it back within 90 days for a full refund. With prices ranging from just $29.95 to $129.95, there's a solution for every budget. Why does Zeppa work wonders? Because it's guaranteed or your money back. But don't just take our word for it. Our most compelling testimonials come from satisfied customers just like you. So why wait? Dive into restful, snore-free nights with Zeppa. Visit badlandsmedia.tv/Zeppa. That's badlandsmedia.tv/ZYPPAH. To support this America First company along with Badlands Media.
Well, we know a significant portion of our Badlands audience are in and around the Maricopa area. We actually met a lot of them at GART 1. So if any of y'all are watching and you experienced any troubles, definitely hit Ryan up at Heath Law.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have the links in the description for everybody, not only to heathlaw.com, but your other outfits, your Gavel project too. So, let's see where to start with this. There's, election issues and election integrity, I think, are some of the most fundamental. And in a way, they're one of the easiest things to understand from an everyday perspective. But there's so much bureaucracy and confusion and lack of education around it. It seems like people are almost totally unable to know what to do when things don't work out right. When you're in a sports game, if one of the players does something wrong, the coach can, say, hey, ref, there's a problem here. You need to go look at that. And there's a way to assert your rights. But in these systems, for whatever reason, and maybe you can comment on that, it seems like you'd think if election integrity is as important as the media and all the politicians tell us, that not a single vote would get missed or have any issues with. And yet it seems like we can't manage to get anything right with our elections. Any comments on that?
Yeah, I think that people need to realize just how important elections are. I mean, if you think about what an election is, it is a process by which we select individuals who really are in charge of all of the other rights that are secured to us by our government. And so if we don't select the right people, we're talking about a situation where things like COVID happen. Things like the tyranny that really came down upon us when these individuals in power decided just to change the rules on their own whims. And so it's so important for us to protect election integrity, for us to actually fight these issues. And there really are not a whole lot of attorneys that are out there doing this. I feel very blessed to be one of the folks that is involved in this. But really, if we are going to protect anything at all, we need to start with our elections because that is the foundation of our freedom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm big into kind of the core aspects of law. Like we have all these systems that have been used in our country, and they were used for a reason. They are techniques for attempting to achieve a very specific purpose, but we've kind of lost touch with a lot of that. And we don't necessarily know the more core components of what elections are supposed to be about, which in my opinion are about the fact that the Creator gave us unalienable rights. And to secure those rights, we created government. And in order for the government to actually protect and defend our rights properly, we have to follow a trusted process. So we have to do things in trust, which is kind of like a fiduciary way of looking at engaging with other people. And we have to use honorable contractual methods. so that when an election happens, every time an event occurs where a person's rights that were previously secured by an agreement are now in flux, there has to be something done to address that, either at the legislative level, at the poll worker level, election worker level, or at the citizen level when all of those systems fail. So, yeah, I'm really happy by what you're doing, because it seems like the biggest issue we have might be in all this is that we, the people, aren't standing up when things aren't working right.
Yeah, and I mean, we saw it with COVID. We saw it with, all of the ridiculous antics that happened here in Maricopa County. And it's just important that citizens realize that we actually have the power to go after these folks. And what it takes is looking to individuals like myself, who are attorneys, who have the skills and the qualifications necessary to file these lawsuits, to go after these people, and empower us. And that's why I want to encourage folks to continue to support the Gavel Project, which is the nonprofit litigation fund that I run. We are funding lawsuits all over the country to hold individuals accountable for what they did to kids during the COVID-19 pandemic, the mask mandates, the vaccine mandates, things like that. So not everyone is able to fight in the way that I am, but it is important to support those folks that are actually putting themselves out there and taking the fight to the bad guys, as I like to say.
Yep, 100%. So let's get into, if you can, get into any of the specifics about the case. I know it involves the folks you mentioned, and you said that some folks were disenfranchised. Are we referring, is some of this related to the paper that wasn't the right size and therefore some people couldn't vote and some of the stuff like that? Can you get into any details?
Yeah, so let's start with the lawsuit that I filed at the beginning of September, and that concerns the signature verification process that is conducted pursuant to Arizona law. And so what Arizona law says is that, this is ARS 16550A, when the county recorder receives a mail-in ballot, the county recorder or his designee shall compare the signature on the affidavit envelope. That's basically the envelope you stick your ballot in and send it in to the county for them to tabulate. He's supposed to compare the signature thereon to the signature, and it's a singular reference here. It doesn't say signatures, it says signature, on the voter's registration form or the voter's registration record. And that's the document that you sign when you actually go into the motor vehicle division or you go into another government agency and you register to vote. And so what's happened in the last month, actually, was something that's very critical on this point, is that there was a lawsuit up in Yavapai County that was filed by the Arizona Free Enterprise Club. And at issue here, basically, is the fact that the Maricopa County recorder took the leave and he actually decided to expand the scope of signature verification, what he was actually including in what's called the registration record. He decided to include what are called historical signatures, meaning signatures from prior mail-in affidavits that were scanned by the county and put into their database. But that's not what the law says. The law says you're supposed to look at the registration record. And when you register to vote in Arizona, that's actually governed by ARS 16152. And it says that you have to show identification and you have to provide proof of citizenship in order to register to vote. You don't have to provide identification or proof of citizenship when you mail in an absentee ballot. You simply sign it and send it in. And so what he's doing is he's taking leave to expand the criteria with which he's using to verify signatures. And he included hundreds of thousands of illegitimate signatures in this database and used those to verify votes in this last election. And the way that we know that is that Maricopa County had 780,000 people submit votes by mail during the August primary in 2022. They included those signature images from basically the capture, the scanning process into their registration records. And then even half of those people voted again by mail in the general. That means that the county verified by looking at a single reference signature, which is what they actually did. This was testimony that came out during May of 2023 during Kerry Lake's second trial. They verified those signatures against historical record signatures, which is not legitimate. And the lawsuit up in Yavapai County, this case was brought by the Arizona Free Enterprise Club. They basically challenged the definition of registration record and said, basically, you have to include only signatures that are given to the county when you're registering to vote. And that's what the judge actually agreed with. He said that the term registration means something. It means it's a process that you actually engage in when you're registering to vote. It's not something you do when you cast a mail-in ballot. And so he says mail-in affidavit signatures are not legitimate. They're not acceptable pursuant to ARS 16550A. And we have evidence that Maricopa County included hundreds of thousands of signatures in their database and verified votes using those. So we're going to be challenging that, and we're very excited about this lawsuit.
Mm. Yeah, we've heard a lot about signatures not working right. We've heard a lot about voter rolls not being correct and things like this. And I wanted to spend a little time talking about why we do these things, because from I guess I can call it a project management, but there's a better word for it. But the reason why we use these affidavits and whatnot is because it's a method of achieving a specific result, which is a chain of custody. And that chain of custody is all about preserving the will of the actual citizen. Because when you're voting, the reason you're voting is because you're recording your will, the person with rights, in a scenario where your will can then be tabulated and recorded with other people to know what candidate to vote for. And so if there's no way to verify your will because you signed it on a mail-in ballot and nobody was there, like a notary, to testify to the fact that you are who you say you were, then you don't have the actual point of what an election is supposed to be, which is the citizen's will being expressed and then recorded in a venue where it can actually materially relate to an aspect of governance. So can you speak to any of that at all? Because I think it's something that's not spoken to enough in these conversations.
Yeah, the will of the electorate. Well, I mean, how do we know that we have the will of the electorate being done when you can't verify the identities of the people who are actually casting ballots? What happened in 2020 is absurd. Basically, because COVID happened, all of these people around the country that were in these governing positions decided they were going to, use the pandemic as a guise for sending out millions of these mail-in ballots on their own whims. I mean, they didn't even really follow the law. They basically said, this is an emergency. We're going to take leave to just send these things out to everyone we possibly can. And we didn't even have laws in place at that time to be able to ensure that people that were casting votes were actually who they said they were. And so that's the key issue here. The voter rolls are way too inflated right now. People are signing up on these permanent early voting lists across the country. They're sending out ballots to all of these different homes without any way of knowing that people that are casting these things are actually who they say they are. And it's really a big problem right now.
Right.
So one of the other guys on the network, Just Human, was talking about how in the lead up to 2024, there are certain counties across the country that are actually reforming some of their laws here and there where they can get victories. Have you seen anything like this happen in Maricopa County? Is there any changes that have been made that you're happy about? Or if there aren't, what are some reforms that you would like to see done?
Yeah, I'd like to see the legislature get together, and I'd like to see them provide a new process by which they give receipts to voters. One of the things that's really a big deal right now is when you cast your ballot in Maricopa, you get a text message typically saying, oh, you got your ballot, it was counted. You can go in and check that your ballot, it was actually tabulated. But one of the things we don't know is whether it was tabulated correctly. And so
critical.
I think that one of the things that is very easy to do, and this would not violate the Arizona Constitution, which actually has a secret ballot provision, meaning anytime you cast your vote, it's secret, it's not supposed to be known to other people. But at the very least, the government should provide you with a receipt showing that your vote was counted in the way that you wanted it to be counted. And
Yes.
that can be it's very simple to do. You put your ballot in, you get the tabulator spits it out, and it gives you like a little copy of what you actually cast your ballot for. So it's a little more complicated with mail-in votes, but it's really not that big of a problem to solve. And I think that the Arizona legislature should pick it up.
I mean, there is no reason why, in the age of smartphones and vaccine verification, that I can't log into a website that shows my name and what elections I voted for and what my vote actually went towards.
And I mean, it could even print out a receipt and also take a screen capture of the receipt that could all be stored. I mean, I would be willing to forego my privacy if it meant having fair elections.
Exactly. And the other thing is like, what about a system where as citizens create their own? What if, I mean, this would be hard to enforce, but what if and when you leave the polling station, there is a independent third party like nonprofit out there that asks you to testify as to what you just voted for. So you have a completely independent third party memorandized document that could even be notarized, so it has some kind of a legal standing to it. I don't know what you could do with something like that, but it could provide some secondary level of verification that's independent from these systems that we can't control. So
you have to get everybody to kind of use it, though.
I guess so. Yeah. It would be a Herculean effort. But anyway, I think that your idea you just came up with is really good. And, but can you comment, or even what are some of your thoughts on why these things haven't happened? How is it that if voting is supposedly our sacred right, it's so important, we hear about this all the time when elections happen, and yet we can manage to do a basketball game better than we can do our own elections?
It's a good question. And frankly, the answer is that our legislature is full of idiots. That's just the way it is. And I don't mean to insult anyone personally. I'm not going to call out people by name, but people on both sides of the aisle. I mean, Republicans and Democrats they're a bunch of stupid people that are running our country, and they don't have any desire to fix the system which benefits them and the people that support them. We are governed by a class of elites that are taking advantage of the campaign finance laws. They're taking gifts like I think Colony Ridge is a great example of this. I've been looking into this situation out in Texas recently, and the individuals that are giving to Greg Abbott's campaign are all tied to this development out there, which is just bringing in a bunch of illegals and making a bunch of money by bankrupting people and going after and foreclosing on these homes that they buy and just selling them over again. So it's really a pay-for-play system across the board. The individuals that give gifts to folks, and I think that there's a state representative, a U.S. representative that's in the district next to the place where Colony Ridge is happening, who didn't receive any gifts from the folks from Colony Ridge. And he seems to be the only one willing to go on the record to talk about this. And that sort of proves the point, right? That's the problem. Money in politics is the biggest problem that our country is facing. You can basically buy your way to control what happens in the legislature, and that needs to change. We need to have campaign finance reform. Everyone should have the same amount of money when they actually declare they are going to be running for office, and we can't have this dark money coming in from these PACs and super PACs.
Right. Yeah. You really know your stuff. I've been studying this stuff for quite some time now, and there's a lot of rhetoric and talk out there, but not a lot of specific, clear indications of what's actually happening. So we just talked about the signature verification part. Are there any other aspects to this case that you're working on that you want to tell us about?
Yeah, well, the signature verification is the main claim that we're bringing here. We're not really bringing any other causes of action in this specific lawsuit. There is a cause of action. The second one is for an equal protection clause violation. Basically, in Arizona, you as a citizen have the right to have your vote counted in a uniform manner. And someone who votes in Maricopa County should have their vote counted in the same way as someone who votes in Cochise County. And right now, what's happening in Maricopa County is the way they have their screen set up for signature verification is they have an image of the signature that's being reviewed to be verified, to tabulate that vote on one side of the screen. On the other side of the screen, they have an image of a prior signature. That's the historical signature. And in Maricopa County, in order to review any additional signatures, you actually have to scroll. You have to use your cursor. You have to go down the screen to look for these other signatures. And that's not what happens in other counties. In other counties, the reviewers have the image of the signature being reviewed, and they have 5 signatures on the screen for them to look at. And so there's not a uniform process being applied here in Arizona. That's an equal protection clause violation, because you're not having your vote tabulated in the same way in Maricopa as you are in Cochise or in Yavapai or elsewhere throughout the state. So that's another cause of action. And then in the additional lawsuit that we're looking to put together, I'm hoping to be able to file this sometime in November. We're bringing claims under the ADA because they did not actually allow individuals with disabilities to vote in a way that was reasonable. They didn't accommodate their disabilities. They basically stuck folks in line, told them the machines weren't working, didn't give them an idea of when these things were going to be backing up or up and back in working order. And they told people that, it could be all day. So folks were leaving. Folks couldn't stand in line. We'll bring claims under that basis, as well as the equal protection clause, because you had the right to vote in person in Maricopa County forever. Since the dawn of Arizona, you've had the right to vote in person in Maricopa County. And only in this specific election was that taken away from you. And the right conferred to you by the legislature to vote in person is fundamental. And so any deviation from that right, per Bush v. Gore, means that your disenfranchisement is actionable under law. And so we're bringing a cause of action for that reason as well.
So have you heard about this? Biden's new budget proposes $4.7 trillion in new taxes. That same budget could push our debt from $31 trillion to a whopping $51 trillion. Could you imagine what that would do to our economy and your quality of life? That's why it's critical you protect your savings with gold and silver before it's too late. We've partnered with the top-rated precious metals company, Goldco, because they're a great company with an amazing reputation. Right now, they're giving you up to $10,000 in free silver while supplies last. Plus, all qualified callers this week will receive a free Ronald Reagan silver coin. We've had disastrous economic policies, never-ending war, skyrocketing inflation, bank failures, and now we've got new tax hikes to worry about. Visit badlandsgold.com to learn how you could protect your life savings. Tell them I sent you and you could get a free Ronald Reagan silver coin. Visit badlandsgold.com. Are you bored of your morning brew? Want to get your coffee from a brand that isn't woke? Try Myco coffee from Conscious Strength. This Arabica coffee is powered with extracts of 7 different medicinal mushrooms. It mixes instantly, tastes great, and will help support your immune system, brain health, and give you no crash energy. It's certified organic and mixed right here in the USA. $1 per serving of this versus $4 for your Starbucks Dirty Mermaid coffee. The choice is yours, available in decaf and bulk sizes. Visit badlandsmedia.tv/Myco. That's badlandsmedia.tv/MYCO, and make sure to use promo code BADLANDS to support this channel and get 5% off your order.
Fantastic. Okay.
What does it seem like the general mood is in Maricopa County, I guess specifically since you're there, as far as the voters? Like, are they more like galvanized to maybe next time wait in line longer? I know that the voter registrations are for Republicans are like tripling that of Democrats since that last election. But if it were 2024 right now, how confident would you be in the current state of Maricopa County's elections?
Not very confident at all. I don't trust the individuals that are running this process. I don't believe that they're acting in good faith in many respects, in the way that they're actually interpreting laws and the way they are taking they're basically just throwing aside what the legislature said and rewriting things based on their own ideas as to what's valid. So one of the issues in Kari Lake's recent lawsuit that's very interesting. So for the folks who haven't been following, Kari Lake filed a public records request trying to get her hands on these millions of signatures on these outside of these mail-in affidavit packets so that she could do some sort of review on them. It's not really relevant to her case, in my view. It's kind of a waste of time because you can't second guess what the county recorder has done once the legislature has delegated the authority to him to actually make the final call on whether a signature is valid. You can't have a judge go in and actually take a look at that again. That's a non-justiciable political question is what we call it in law. It's something you can't actually second guess as a judge. But at issue in that case is whether the EPM granted the county, this is what Maricopa County was claiming. They're claiming that the signatures are part of the registration record, which they're not. These mail-in affidavit signatures, obviously we talked about this earlier, are outside of the scope of what that means by law. They're claiming that they are, and that's because the EPM, which is granted the authority of law by the Arizona revised statutes, says that you can include early in-person affidavit signatures in the registration record. And that makes sense. This is page 69 of the EPM, because when you go in person to vote early, you have to show your ID. And so you actually can arguably be engaged in a registration or a re-registration when you vote early in person because you show your ID. That's different than when you vote early by mail, where you don't show your ID. And so in my view, there is a way for Kari Lake to win this case and get her hands on these signatures, but it's going to take her attorney really making the point clear. And actually, one of the things that I'm a bit upset about is I wrote an amici brief in that case. I submitted a third-party brief, meaning a friend of the court brief, on behalf of a client. And the judge rejected it because he said he didn't trust the identification of my client. He didn't believe we were who we said we were, in essence. And so I made this argument. In fact, ARS 16163A, I believe, explains that when the county recorder gets someone's registration in proper form, uses that term, they shall send the registration record, so they equate those two terms, to the proper precinct. And that's one of the things that was not argued by Kerry Lake's attorney in this last lawsuit. I was actually in the back of the courtroom trying to help him. I was sending him messages through the Signal app, basically saying, hey, man, the law you're looking for is ARS 16163A. Please cite this. You'll win the case. I don't think he got it because he was in closing argument. So hopefully he'll move the court to reconsider the Amici brief and actually include that in the record.
Right.
Man, what a genius idea to have like a kind of a network of lawyers trying to help each other. You know, like on Signal or Telegram or what have you. It seems like it could be a really useful thing.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it sounds like, or let me ask this question. Would you say in your review of, Maricopa election law, although possibly other counties or jurisdictions you've looked into, would you say that the what's on the books with respect to the law is above board, and if followed would effectively produce sound elections? Or do you think we have to kind of go back to the drawing board?
I think that what's on the board, if it's followed, is sufficient at least to give some degree of accuracy and transparency. The problem is that these counties are basically just rewriting the laws and doing what they want. So the laws in the books, in my view, are sufficient. We just need to follow them.
So it seems pretty simple from a trust perspective. An elected official is a trustee of the people, and trustees have to do what the people say. So if we, the people, through the legislature, enact a set of laws for our elections, and then we appoint office holders to preside over what we've decided we want to have happen, and they don't do their duty, they don't discharge their duty, wouldn't that be grounds to do something like a recall of their office? Something like, what power would you say in the law that is that the people have? Like, what if I'm watching my election process go to hell in a handbasket? What is there to do?
I think that challenging the elections is the best way to go, and that's what we do through litigation. And that's what I'm trying to accomplish is filing these lawsuits. And a lot of people are claiming, it's kind of funny to watch the county attorneys push back and say, well, you don't have standing because you need to bring this lawsuit within 5 days of the election per the Arizona statutes. And I'm like, look, the Arizona Constitution doesn't give a crap about the Arizona statutes. They can't supersede my rights as an individual citizen to challenge something when you violate my constitutional rights. That's the supremacy of the way the law works. And so when we have evidence coming out in May that was not available to the public, within the 5-day statute of limitations, it's effectively impossible for us to have done anything about it at the time. And so what I'm asking the courts to do is to secure and actually recognize that we have rights that are foundational, that are promised to us by our forefathers in the Constitution. And in order to change those rights, you have to go through a specific process with a huge majority of the legislature to actually alter what that law says. This is very different and very distinct from someone who passes, let's say, just a regular bill or a regular statute. You can't override our constitutional guaranteed rights, our God-given rights, by passing some sort of ridiculous election procedures manual that's written by the Secretary of State, who happens to be an interested party in the next election. And so that's what we're doing. We're going after the folks based on the foundational principles of law that we are promised by our forefathers, and we're trying to secure those rights through the court process. And I hope everyone that can goes to our website, checks us out, heathlaw.com, goes to thegavelproject.com. I can't do this work, this elections work, without the folks out there supporting the nonprofit work that I'm doing. I have a fiduciary duty as the president of the nonprofit and as a board member to make sure that I'm funding these cases, that we're paying our attorneys on time. And these attorneys cost a lot of money. So when I'm doing elections work, I'm not free to be doing things like this, going out and fundraising. So everyone that supports us, I really appreciate it. And I want to thank everyone who's actually been really helpful to us in that regard over the last couple of years. Yeah,
100%. Yeah, definitely support Ryan if you can, guys. We actually have a couple other folks who are really interested in election that we'll try to get you connected with.
Awesome.
After the show. Man, it was just something that just totally escaped my mind. But well, I mean, from a citizen's perspective, like let's say we're a year and a half out from 2024, or more like I guess a year and 3 months out from 2024. Is there anything that we, the people, citizens, can do to be prepared so that whenever shenanigans are attempted in 2024, which I think we have a good reason to believe there will probably be something, that we have a system in place to capture the shenanigans, collate them, standardize them, and file them in whatever jurisdictions they need to be filed at. So within the 5 days, we do have something on the books and we can run. I mean, you're in this picture. We've got a lot of people who watch the show and are just interested in doing something, but they don't know what to do. So is there any kind of guidance you can suggest there? Or maybe we can develop something to do this, as a team?
Yeah, I would say folks should be educating themselves on the way that the public records request laws work in every single state throughout the country. Public records requests are really powerful tools for us to be able to get information about what's going on inside our government. Things like internal communications, things like communications from the government to their vendors. And so being able to understand how you actually file a public records request and to do so in a way where it's not going to get kicked back to you is a super powerful tool for anyone who wants to actually help. That would be a very good way of securing your rights as a citizen and holding your government accountable. Because you could take that information to people like me, and then I can file lawsuits, which is what we need to do.
Right. Okay. So I guess, if you're an interested citizen, then maybe the first step is to learn about these public records and then connect with you in some way through one of your outfits.
Yeah, I think that would be a great way to do it. I'm also willing to go and speak with groups if anyone around Maricopa County or even throughout Arizona wants to have me out to talk about these things. You can contact my office through our websites, and I'd be happy to come out and speak with you.
Excellent. Yeah, I had just met somebody at GART who is a lawyer right like 2 minutes down the road from us, and I just had lunch with her, and she had an idea to create a coalition of lawyers who basically did just what you're doing, which is to, when shenanigans happen, they all work together to figure out what happened, get it in a form that can be filed and prosecuted, and then they do it. So maybe there's some national work we can do there as far as gathering up those resources.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, I see it right now. I'm involved in the COVID litigation conference. I spoke at the last one back last March. This is a large group of attorneys that gets together every year. It's put on by the Vaccine Safety Research Foundation and a few other sponsors as well, where we bring attorneys together to talk about the different issues surrounding COVID-19. I was blessed to be on the stage last year, and I'm blessed to be part of the steering committee this year to actually help guide and put on this event. So looking forward to that. That's going to be in March in Vegas. If anyone is interested, I believe that you can find information on that at the VRSF website, the Vaccine Safety Research Foundation. I think it's vacsafety.org.
Vacsafety.org. Excellent. Okay, cool.
Right.
All right. Well, just a couple other questions if you got some time.
Sure.
We've got Trump is being sued for all sorts of things that I think are pretty legally spurious. I was curious if you had any comments on that. And then also, are you afraid for what other backlash you might receive from this? Because merely questioning the integrity of an election is apparently an indictable offense now. So
yeah, personally, I'm not scared. I sued Kari Lake's judge for folks who haven't been following the story. So I sued Judge Peter Thompson after he issued, in my view, what in my view was a very bad ruling back in December of 2022. And I sued him for a writ of mandamus. Basically, that's asking a court to issue an order to a lower official to do their job. I sued him in the Arizona Supreme Court, and instead of getting sanctioned, instead of losing my law license, they asked me to intervene as amicus in Kari Lake's case. And when the case got to the Supreme Court, I filed a friend of the court brief, an amicus curiae brief, and I won on that issue. And that's because I brought a meritorious claim. When you file meritorious lawsuits, you don't get sanctioned. You don't lose your law license. You don't get arrested. When you really act in ways that are consistent with the law, you have nothing to fear. What is happening with Donald Trump, though, is really an abuse of discretion by the prosecutors across the country. And so, it's been a saying for a long time in the legal field that you can indict a ham sandwich. And that's the truth. I mean, you don't need really much to be able to charge folks with a crime. And the fact is that prosecutors have absolute immunity from retaliation by folks that they throw in jail, even if they're doing so with knowledge that the people are innocent, with knowledge their case sucks. There's nothing that can really be done except for the bar associations holding them accountable. And that just hasn't happened. There's a really good example of this involving an individual from Texas named Michael Norton. And Michael was a guy, I think this was back in the 80s, 70s, who was accused wrongly of murdering his wife. He was accused by a local prosecutor who actually ended up being a judge of murdering his wife. And the Innocence Project actually proved through DNA evidence 25 years after this guy had been sitting in jail that someone else murdered his wife. Someone else who had murdered another person in Texas, another county, just a few years before that, or a few months before that. Anyway, this prosecutor who hid evidence actually refrained from giving what's called exculpatory evidence, that is evidence that tends to prove the innocence of the party being charged. They withheld that evidence, and this guy sat in jail for 25 years while the prosecutor became a judge and sat on the bench. And so right now, that's called a Brady violation. When you withhold exculpatory evidence, you don't provide it to the other party, and you charge them with the crime. There's no consequences for that. And so one of the things that I think we should change as a country, really every state across the country and on the federal level as well, is the consequences for Brady violations. If you commit a Brady violation, if you don't give the defense every single thing in your possession, you should be thrown in jail for as long as you tried to put the other person in jail as a prosecutor. That should be a clear consequence. It'd be cut and dry. You want to put someone away for life, guess what? You go away for life if you commit a Brady violation. So I think that's something that we should change. I think that would really help the justice system become a much more just system for all of us. And it would hold folks who are bad actors accountable.
It's wild that withholding exculpatory evidence has no punishment.
No consequence.
That seems like a go-to strategy for this deep political establishment. I mean, we've heard the term exculpatory evidence how many times from 2016 onward?
We're certainly more aware of it now than we were many years ago. So, what I think standards are very important. And when you don't know what a standard is, then you can easily be misled in a situation. And when it comes to the rule of law, it's a phrase that's been bandied about quite a bit, certainly by some folks who I think don't know what it is or intentionally mislead people with that phrase. But from what I understand, the rule of law is equal treatment under the law. And if somebody is violating the rights of another person, it doesn't really matter who they are. If they're the president of the United States or a judge, harm was done, and that harm needs to be remedied in some way. Yeah. So, if you agree with what I just said, do you think we live in a system where the rule of law actually is upheld, or do we not?
I don't think that we live in a system where the rule of law is upheld. I think that the rule of law exists. I think that I want to add to your definition a little bit because I think it's important for people to understand fully. The rule of law is a system of rules that govern our lives, that allow us as citizens to be able to make decisions knowing that what we're doing is either going to be in the right without consequence or in the wrong with potential consequence. And so it allows you to have an absolute sense of freedom by knowing the laws that are written are going to be applied equally with respect to the way that you are situated or with respect to the way that the president of the United States is situated. Both parties should be treated equally across the board. And with respect to people like Hunter Biden, who were just given slaps in the wrist by the FBI, by the DOJ, who let the statute of limitations on these foreign corruption acts actually run without holding him accountable, despite having all of the evidence they need to hold him accountable, that's not the rule of law. Because they're going after other people for crimes that are much lesser and holding them to account to a much more significant degree. They're punishing people disparately, and that is a huge problem. We need to make sure that the laws are applied equally, and we need to have laws that are passed that allow citizens to basically go after folks who abuse that authority. And that's the thing right now. You can't hold the DOJ accountable. You can't sue federal actors who violate your rights under color and authority of law, even under the Civil Rights Act. The famous Civil Rights Act that was passed back in the 1960s that allows you to sue state actors does not apply to the federal government. If they violate your rights willy-nilly, there's not much you can do as an individual to hold feds accountable, and that needs to change. We need to make sure that we're expanding the capacity of citizens to hold the government accountable, and that's what our legislature really should be focused on right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Well, we got a lot of work to do for sure. No doubt you got a lot of work to do, and we citizens have a lot of work to do. So really appreciate everything you're doing. And if folks want to follow you, stay up to date, where would you say is a good place to do that?
Yeah, I would say following me on Twitter would be great. I'm at Ryan_L_Heath. And you can also follow the Gavel Project. We are at the Gavel Project. And I'm also on Instagram, same handle. So you can follow us there.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Ryan, so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
Ryan and Justin, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.